Before I introduce our first speaker today, the program is also available on the website, and it includes a welcome letter from our regional program administrator, Scott Eastman, and our friends of the GTM Reserve Executive Director, Ellen Leroy Reed. And it also includes the project abstract and presenter biographies from both our oral presenters today and our poster presenters. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce Dr. Michael Shirley. Dr. Mike Shirley serves as the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's Coastal Management Program Administrator and the Deputy Director for the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. He has held the position of the Director at the GTM Research Reserve and has served as the Northeast Florida Regional Program Administrator for the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection's Northeast Coast Aquatic Preserve Program from 2007 until October of 2020. Mike started his professional career as a staff scientist for Save the Bay Incorporated in Rhode Island in 1980. During his graduate studies, he worked at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center and the EPA's Gulf Ecology Division Laboratory. Mike has also held positions as a research biologist, resource management coordinator, and research coordinator at the Rookery Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Naples, Florida. In this role, he was responsible for maintaining the management of continuous water quality monitoring stations as part of the National Estuarine Research Reserve system-wide monitoring program. He has held adjunct faculty positions with Florida Gulf Coast University, Florida International University, Florida Southwestern State College, and Hodges University. Dr. Shirley has a PhD in marine science with a minor in environmental toxicology from North Carolina State University, a Master's of Science in Biology from the University of West Florida, and a Bachelor of Science in Zoology from the University of Rhode Island. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Shirley for a couple of morning remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caitlin. I had given her a shorter bio, and she went to the longer bio. It kind of, but thanks. It's cool to be in my new role, and it's really nice to be here for the State of the Reserve. We started these over a decade ago, and today we have over 130 people participating. We have folks from as far away as New York on the event today. And what I think I like most about the State of the Reserve is how it helps connect the reserve to our coastal community. And if you think about the purpose of a reserve, it's to be a place for science and for education. But to make that really work, we need to also be immersed into the local community and to be connecting to people that use or make decisions around the reserve or use the resources, the fishermen, the folks who, are out here, enjoying the trails or the beaches. And so when I think of the State of the Reserve, I think of all things in the way it connects us. It connects researchers together. It connects the educators together. I know from the past State of the Reserves, we've had folks that have learned new things and gone on as graduate students working at the reserve, and then later as professors bringing their graduate students. Educators connect up, and they think of great ways to bring their students out and experience the reserve. Obviously, the community around us has been very supportive. DEP has been incredibly supportive, and we are pretty much blessed to be in a location where officials at the state, the federal, the county, and the city level are all very supportive of the reserve. And that's another thing the State of Reserve does, is it brings all these individuals together so they can learn a little bit more about the reserve. They can learn about the research that's happening, the education programs. It allows groups like our volunteers, who have been very important in making things happen here, to see some of the summaries of the work that they've been helping to make at the reserve successful. It also allows our educators from all different schools and age groups to come out and experience the reserve here virtually. But I know a lot of folks come out here with their classes, and many of these opportunities have spun off of the State of the Reserve. I also think it's really cool because we have a very supportive management advisory group and a friends board and members of the GTM, friends of the GTM, and they get to see this and they get to basically hopefully sit back and know that they're a part of making this happen. And so they're very dedicated. They do great work to help advise as well as help fundraise, and their experience comes to the table and makes it a better reserve. So to wrap it all up, it's just the community in general that the State of Reserve is for. So by you participating and getting back to Caitlin's first ask, my hope is that you'll all have something you bring away from the State of the Reserve that maybe inspires you to be a volunteer, or maybe in a decision you're going to make, you say, hey, you know, I learned something new today and I'm going to apply that information to a decision. Or if you're an educator or someone who's never been out to the reserve, maybe you'll be inspired to come visit the reserve. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great venue, and it hits right in the center of the mission of the reserve. One of the other things I have on my agenda today is to make a very exciting announcement. As some of you know, we've been in a transition, searching and basically figuring out how can we, get a management position here at the reserve. Because when I left from my job with a more statewide role, it's been juggling time between statewide and local venues. I know Scott's been doing an excellent job filling in on things, but um, as of yesterday, I want to announce that we have offered and she has accepted that Leah Sansom will now be the director of the GTM Research Reserve. And so I guess what if we were all together in the auditorium, we could all put our hands together and congratulate Leah. I guess we'll have to do a virtual congratulations. But for those of you who know Leah, I mean, she's the perfect choice. She's been serving as the assistant manager for a number of years. She came to the reserves in the coastal training program. She has the job skill set, mixing both environmental studies with business administration. I've watched Leah come to meetings and facilitate and pull groups together, and she's outstanding at approaching challenges with first enthusiasm and positive solutions, and really listening and bringing people together. I think behind the scenes, she's been the glue that's held together a lot of the things that happen at the reserve. She helps the staff pull together work plans. She helps with planning of events like this. And so it's a great choice. I'm glad she accepted the role, and I'm looking forward to all the great things Leah's going to be doing as manager. So thank you, Leah. And next year you'll get to lead off the State of the Reserve, and we all appreciate you. And up next on the agenda, I'd like to introduce somebody who's also very special to the reserve, Steph Robinson. Steph is a senior coastal management specialist. She works with NOAA's Office for Coastal Management, and she serves as the liaison for the GTM Reserve and also for other reserves. I think the best way to introduce Steph is to know that she is just so dedicated to helping the reserves. I see her, and I know the staff does, as just part of our team. She basically helps us navigate those sometimes very difficult waters of applying for grants, of going through various types of reviews and performance metrics, and occasionally the NEPA review process. But she always does so in such a way that it's never a top-down approach with Steph. She's always part of the team. She always helps us find ways to navigate these waters. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Steph Robinson.
Good morning. Thank you, Mike, for that warm welcome and introduction. As Mike mentioned, my name is Stephanie Robinson, and I work with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, as a liaison between the Office for Coastal Management and all of the reserves in the Southeast, including the Guantanamo-Matanzas Reserve. It's great to have Mike here today. This is my 7th year working with GTM and my 5th state of the reserve. Early on, there were a couple of conflicts that I couldn't make it. And although he is transitioning to his new role within the Department of Environmental Protection, it just wouldn't feel like the State of the Reserve without Mike here to kick us off. And it's so great that he's staying close by and will still be part of the coastal management family. It's also very inspiring to see how the staff have done such an awesome job continuing the work of the reserve during this time of transition. And very, very exciting to hear Mike's announcement about Leah Sansom's new role as the manager of the reserve. Congratulations, Leah. Looking forward to continuing to work with you. As I just hinted, I'm a habitual attendee at the State of the Reserve, but I'm honored to be talking with you all today at this first completely virtual version of the annual event. I know that the staff has put a lot of thought and effort into making this year's program as engaging and informative as ever, with so many different ways for participants and presenters to connect virtually through Zoom like we are today, through Padlet and YouTube, from live in-person presentations, seminars, and social gatherings, to online networking boards and posters. And for those of you who haven't had the challenge of working through all of the logistics and technological challenges behind the scenes to pull off a successful virtual meeting, trust me when I say that what we're all seeing on the front end as participants is just the tip of the iceberg, and it really is a big effort. So well done to Caitlin and Abby for organizing such a great meeting this year. I know that we all wish that we could be together in person at GTM today, but I'm still really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you all and hear more about a lot of the great work happening at the reserve. It's truly exciting to know that so much is still going on despite the challenges of the pandemic. And although I was lucky enough to be invited to help start things off today, I'd like to point out that several of my NOAA colleagues are also participating in portions of today's program, so you may see them in the participants list. This includes some of our regional staff, Makeda Akolo and Kristen Ransom. Our National Research Lead, Chris Kincaid, is on, and our National Reserve Lead, Erica Seiden, is also logging in for portions of today's event. So be sure to reach out to them in the chat too. I'd really like to use my time this morning to tell you more about the entire reserve system. GTM is one of 29 National Estuarine Research Reserves, or NERS or NERS, depending on who you are and how you like to pronounce that acronym. These are located around the nation's coasts, as you can see on the map in my slides. This system of reserves was established to provide protection for estuarine ecosystems, opportunities for environmental education, to create important connections between science and coastal management, and also to act as vital platforms for research. NERS exist because of a partnership between NOAA and coastal states, where NOAA provides funding and guidance, and state agencies or universities provide additional funds and on-the-ground management. Hopefully the pictures that are coming up in my slides will provide a taste of the people and the places that make GTM so special. And I should note that I am not personally responsible for any of the awesome photos that you're gonna see. They're beautiful, but they're all courtesy of the Reserve's Flickr site. So you can check those out at another time. Florida is lucky enough to have 3 reserves in the state, each representing a different ecosystem and focusing on the unique challenges faced by the communities within which they're embedded, including impacts to water quality and understanding and planning for the effects of climate change, just to name a couple. I'm sure that you'll be hearing a lot more from Deputy Secretary Blalock about the value of the NERS to Florida in a few minutes. But from a national perspective, the reserves participate in several system-wide efforts founded on common principles or practices, but fine-tuned to the specific needs and challenges of each local reserve. These system-wide efforts include the System-Wide Monitoring Program, or SWAMP, which consists of long-term data on water quality, weather, biological communities, habitat, land use, and land cover characteristics. The standardized instrumentation and data collection protocols allow the delivery of near real-time data from each of the reserve sites that are uniform, consistent, and reliable. You can find reserve data online through the Reserve Centralized Data Management Office. These data sets serve as the backbone for many reserve and partner-led research projects, and they support national, regional, and local level assessments of how our coastal natural resources are doing. You'll likely hear swamp mentioned several times during today's presentations and also listed on some of the posters. Building on this baseline data, almost all reserves, including GTM, have started to monitor the effects of sea level rise and inundation on our coastal habitats. This important effort provides a baseline for gauging the impacts of climate change and how these impacts differ across states, regions, and the nation. You'll get to see a great example of how information can be extrapolated from the system's research and monitoring program in the very first presentation today from Dr. Nikki Dix. In addition, the NEAR Science Collaborative is another system-wide effort that provides competitive funding opportunities for reserves to partner with each other and with academic institutions to further their research efforts. GTM has an amazing record of successful science collaborative projects, some of which are featured in the State of the Reserve program. I encourage you to go check those out. The system also is very proud to offer a brand new opportunity, the Margaret Davidson Fellowship, to give valuable graduate level project experience to the next generation of coastal scientists and managers. The variety of subjects being studied by this first cohort of fellows is as diverse as the reserves are themselves. Ashley Rayome, GTM's Davidson Fellow, is studying the use of environmental DNA to assess the impact of water quality on plankton communities. You can find out more about her work and connect with her on the virtual poster session in Padlet. Another important facet of the NEARS is the Coastal Training Program, which assists local decision makers with navigating the translation of scientific information into sound coastal management practices and policies. The system also includes an inspiring education program that not only provides curriculum materials, but also the priceless opportunity for students of all ages to experience estuarine habitats and science firsthand. Our NEARS education staff also provide important hands-on training to educators through the Teachers on the Estuary program, or TOTE, so that they can simultaneously empower students to understand and become stewards of their estuaries while also meeting important state and national science standards. And finally, the reserves also foster environmental stewardship to protect and restore the vital habitats and species within them, while also providing access and recreational opportunities so that these beautiful places and enriching experiences can continue for generations to come. During today's State of the Reserve program, we'll be hearing about a number of fascinating projects being conducted at GTM that demonstrate the value of these system-wide programs, such as how salt marshes in Northeast Florida are shifting over time and what these changes may mean for natural and human communities, the status and trends of water quality within the reserve and its surrounding watersheds, and potential connections to surrounding land use, as well as its effect on natural resources, studies of estuarine species and their abundance and health, and the use of technology to advance not only research and monitoring, but also education, which of course has become so much more important in these times of a global pandemic. And even though we're all starting to become a lot more comfortable with the use of technology for all sorts of professional, educational, and social purposes these days, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that GTM has been on the forefront of using technology for research and education even before COVID-19. As you view today's presentations and browse the posters online, I'd like you to take note of the number of different organizations represented. As Mike mentioned, we have people from pretty far afield logging in today. You'll not only see GTM's amazing staff listed on the posters and presentations, but also researchers based at institutions across the state of Florida, the region of the Southeast, the country, and even the world. Although the state and federal governments provide funds to GTM, the Reserve is able to bring even more opportunities to provide educational programs, training for coastal decision makers, and research projects by leveraging not only the funding that they get, but also their people and their partnerships. Partnerships with state and local government, partnerships with colleges and public schools, partnerships with nonprofits and citizen support groups, especially the Friends of GTM and the Reserve's dedicated volunteers. And the places are important and valuable and beautiful, but it's the people and these partnerships that help us all to understand and appreciate these special places. I know that today's State of the Reserve presentations will help highlight all of these facets of GTM and hopefully leave us all wanting to dig in more and learn what this and other reserves have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's wonderful having you join us today. As Stephanie mentioned, NOAA is our federal partner, and we are so glad that so many of our NOAA friends have joined us today. We also have a state partner at the GTM Research Reserve, which is the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And joining us today from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, we also have Alex Reed, the Director of the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. Thank you for joining us, Alex. We do have Dr. Mike Shirley, and we had a wonderful welcome remark from him. Scott Eastman, our Northeast Regional Administrator of the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. Leah Sansom, our new manager of the GTM Research Reserve. And our second keynote of this morning, Adam Blalock, the Deputy Secretary for Ecosystems Restorations within the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. As Deputy Secretary, Adam is responsible for overseeing statewide water supply, restoring and protecting Florida's aquatic ecosystems, including the Everglades, managing aquatic research, monitoring and laboratory analysis, funding water and wastewater infrastructure, and governing coastal protection and resiliency. Prior to joining DEP, Adam worked at Hopping Green and Sam's, specializing in natural resource legislation and environmental permitting on the local, state, and national levels. Adam is a wealth of experience in public environmental law, serving first as an attorney and later as a policy chief for the Agricultural and Natural Resources Subcommittee of the Florida House of Representatives from 2005 to 2015. In addition to his legal experience, Adam holds a Juris Doctor and master's degree in environmental law and policy from the Vermont Law and a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Florida. Adam is also an active member of the environmental land use section of the Florida Bar. And with that, I would like to welcome Adam Blalock, I apologize, to provide a few remarks this morning. Thank you for joining us, Adam.
Yeah, no, thank you for that introduction. And yeah, I can't say I'm a doctor, so, but I'm very excited to be here and talking to all of you. This is my second State of the Reserve, and the first one I fortunately was able to be at GTM in person, and although we can't be in person today, just seeing how many people were able to have involved in being on for the virtual State of the Reserve. We'll have a lot of really good presentations and a lot of good information. So again, excited to be here and pleasure to be able to share a few words on our Office of Resiliency and Coastal Protection and the NERS, and in particular GTM. I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about the NER system and GTM and the others. And although I think when I gave the presentation last year, I'd only been on the job, a couple months, and now after having a year kind of under my belt, I've been able to learn a lot and all the importance that the GTM and NER locations provide for the state. And I think it's, GTM is a very unique and important resource that the state is fortunate to have, seeing a section of Florida in between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, completely undeveloped for the most part and natural, and having that for research and education and the public and universities, and just is something that I think all of us recognize the importance of having that. So getting more into kind of where we are today, it's a really exciting time to be a part of RCP. We have a lot of things going on right now, and with resiliency and sea level rise really coming to the forefront of state policy, GTM is really strategically located and doing a lot of exciting work in that area. In particular, the studies on water quality and marsh ecosystems. And I think we have a presentation today on looking at the increased mangrove species that have a strong connection to climate change and the sedimentation, and looking at the impacts of sea level rise on our coastal ecosystems and habitats is something that is really going to be important, and work that I know those involved at GTM are going to be focusing on into the future. The Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection is currently in the process of developing a sea level rise impact tool that is implementing legislation that was passed last year, and is something that is really exciting, not so much from a regulatory standpoint, but just from a information and data collection on the impacts of sea level rise on coastal construction, and allows us to gather a lot of really good data and information. And the tool that's being put together by Alex Reed's shop is something that's really gonna, I think, be a incredible tool that will provide a lot of benefits to the state, and I think will be kind of a leader in this kind of statewide analysis, and establishing a state sea level rise projection curve is another thing that I think provides a lot of really good policy statement to the importance of addressing sea level rise, and the science and backgrounds on identifying what the impacts currently that we're seeing and are projected to continue to see, and what we can do to try to mitigate some of those impacts and protect our coastal resources. And secondly, this session, the governor announced as part of his budget the Resilient Florida program, which is looking to fund $1 billion to help protect the impacts and mitigate impacts of sea level rise. So another really just big program that RCP is, if it gets through the legislature, will be responsible for implementing. So having Alex Reed and Dr. Shirley and all the different aquatic preserves and NERS as part of DEP really are a great resource for the state. So I just think that this time in Florida, although sea level rise and climate change are really daunting issues that are going to have a lot of impacts, there's a lot going on that both from the science and policy and implementation of a lot of the work and information that we're getting from the work being done at GTM is going to go a long way to provide us the information and that's needed to deal with some of these issues. So we have a lot of good presentations and information to hear today. So I will stop talking and allow the more interesting presentations to begin, but also just a really big congratulations to Leah in her position at GTM, and also having Dr. Shirley being a part of Deputy Director of RCP. So those are some really good people that we're fortunate to have. So thank you very much, and look forward to today's presentations.
Thank you so much, Adam. We're glad that you're able to join us this morning. And thank you to both Dr. Shirley and Stephanie as well for being a part of the kickoff to State of the Reserve. There are a few additional folks that I'd like to send appreciation for joining us this morning. The first is Commissioner Barbara Blonder from the City of St. Augustine. Thank you for joining us, Commissioner. And also John Cantner from the University of North Florida, as we partner with the University of North Florida on several on several projects, and several of our staff are on contract to the University of North Florida. So thank you for joining us.